立法會
The President. Good morning, members, officials. The Council continues to debate the motion on continuously reviewing the targeted poverty alleviation strategy. Mr. Chulabwai, thank you. First of all, I welcome the report issued by the Commission on Poverty. First of all, the report mentions the social transfer value for the first time. It balances the efforts on different fronts. It shows the government's efforts on different target groups, and 3 target groups have been identified, outlining the future development of poverty alleviation strategies. The administration is moving towards being scientific and targeted. This is worth our recognition. The government should continue to consolidate resources and introduce the participation of the business sector. We need to leverage on tripartite collaboration among the business, members of the public, and the administration. This is to give members of the public a sense of gain, achievement, and happiness. I have the following suggestions. We need to draw from the experience of the Chinese mainland. We need to further enhance the community support network. The community living room pilot program has been yielding significant results. It provides living space. It also provides an area for members of the public to rally together. The report says that we need to deepen the collaboration among the 3 parties. In addition to the community living room pilot program, there is still burgeoning demand for elderly services, childcare services, and respite services. We need to make good use of idle sites in society. We can also make good use of community halls to help them transform and upgrade in order to provide more services for members of the public. We need to provide parents with childcare services. This will help unleash the labor force or the potential labor force of Hong Kong. This will achieve a win-win situation, and we can also provide carers with breathing space so that they can get a rest. We need to continue to enhance the platform of district health centers so that we can take the prevention first approach. District health centers cover all 18 districts in the city. However, in some districts, we have district health center expresses only, and I do think we need to pick up the pace. For some areas with DHC, the referral procedures still leave room for improvement. Members of the public told me that it's quite complicated for them to go to the district health center to access services. This will affect their intention to go to the DHC. If we can provide primary healthcare services, we can prevent ailment from becoming serious disorders. We need to leverage on the hub of district health centers. We need to provide a one-stop shop all the way from general outpatient clinic to specialist outpatient clinic in order to help more grassrooters in Hong Kong. Targeted poverty alleviation requires systematic and concerted efforts. As long as we rally together, stand on the same page, we can together alleviate poverty, and we can create a more harmonious and fairer society. Thank you. I so submit Professor Michael Ngai. The report on impact of targeted poverty alleviation strategy in Hong Kong was issued last week. It sets out some of the effectiveness of the poverty alleviation strategies. The singular definition of poverty line has been abandoned. This shows an important paradigm shift in our poverty alleviation strategy by identifying 3 target groups. I have the following suggestions to make. I agree on the three main target groups as mentioned in the report. We need to pool resources and focus our resources on some target groups while eradicating poverty in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, there are asset-rich seniors without income. However, they were still classified as poor just because of the fact that they do not have a job. This will lead to an inflated population of the poor in Hong Kong. The report sets out three main target groups covering SDU households, as well as single-parent households with children aged 12 or below, as well as all elderly households. There are different schemes such as the school-based after-school care service scheme pilot program on community living room and Strive and Rise program. The satisfaction rate of these schemes exceed 70%. And for families which have taken part in the school-based after-school care service scheme, they have registered an increase of $3,500 in their monthly income. We need to make sure our targeted poverty alleviation direction is correct, and we also need to review the target group mechanism from time to time in order to make sure that our direction is correct. We need to keep reviewing our policies. There might be new target groups that warrant our attention. Take SDU households as an example. There are a total of 14 community living rooms in Hong Kong under the pilot scheme. It is expected that 7,000 SDU households will be covered. The number of community living rooms will even increase to 18 all over the city. It is hoped that with the supply of public housing, there will be improvements in the living conditions of SDU households. We need to have a regular reviewing mechanism targeting the three main target groups. This is to make sure that our resources are concentrated on the most needed groups. This rapid development of AI is causing systemic changes in the employment market. Many grassroots may be affected by the rapid development of AI and they bear the brunt. There are a total of 21 macro indicators monitoring the employment trends across different sectors and industries in Hong Kong. When there is a marked decrease in income or when the unemployment rate remains high, the administration should step in earlier. They should be on the offensive to tackle the problem, lest it would be too late. We shouldn't use a singular definition of the poverty line, and we need to make good use of the 21 macro indicators to gauge the effectiveness of the policies. The multidimensional framework covers income, asset, living conditions, healthcare, elderly services, and social connection. I suggest that the government release reports covering the 21 macro indicators on a regular basis. Without an accurate definition of poverty line, we need to prevent a label from being attached to the poor in Hong Kong. We need to plan ahead for the use of resources in the future. The test of targeted poverty alleviation isn't just at the starting line. It's about sustainability. We need to use the indicators to dynamically monitor the implementation of the scheme. We also need to stay ahead of the curve to prevent any risks. Thank you.
主席，15規劃提出加大
The outline of the National 15 Five-Year Plan stipulates strengthening efforts to guarantee and improve people's livelihoods and advancing common prosperity of all. The government is working on the first 5-year plan for Hong Kong. Targeted poverty alleviation strategy means targeted support for citizens, and apart from that, we need to have cross-sectoral collaboration. We need to encourage people to get a job and help those with difficulties to overcome their hurdles. This is to build the confidence of citizens and to help them increase their sense of gain. In the recently released report, we no longer adopt the definition of poverty. It aims to empower our citizens so that the target groups can live with dignity. And this is in line with the objective of alleviating poverty in this concept of sustainable tourism. The UN as well as the World Bank have launched projects to promote tourism and alleviate poverty. In our country, over 10% of people have been lifted out of poverty through village tourism. We need to build infrastructure and promote nature conservation to transform our energy and impetus into development forces. The government cannot only build a safety net, we need to support the grassroots, and we need to come up with a mechanism to make sure that people can live with dignity. This is also to foster targeted poverty alleviation. Tourism is not just an economic activity, it is a connection for our community. The idea of tourism is everywhere should be incorporated as part of the indicators. I have the following suggestions. First, the government should take the lead. We need cross-departmental collaboration. We need to work with different sectors to promote tourism. We should promote tourism in rural areas. We should develop cultural itineraries and develop bazaars to make sure that profit can directly benefit SMEs as well as local fisheries and agriculture industries. Tourism covers a lot of different posts and jobs. The industry offers a lot of part-time positions that are flexible and paid on hourly rate. This helps encourage employment. Second, training should be incorporated in the cultural projects. We should help grassroots young people, women, persons with disabilities, as well as ethnic minorities. We should also make use of MICE tourism as well as cultural tourism to empower the grassroots. Third, we need to match resources with our KPIs. As the government works to promote tourism, we need to come up with KPIs such as nature conservation, as well as employment and environmental protection to make sure that our targeted poverty alleviation can ensure sustainable development. Tourism does not only bring about economic benefits. Consumption can also help transform economic outcomes into empowerment of people. This is to help build a sustainable future. Thank you. Dr. Alvin Lee. I speak in support of Mr. Lam Chun-sing's motion as well as the amendments moved by other members. The report on targeted poverty alleviation came very timely. I agree that we should move from an income-based poverty line to a new approach, that is proactive identification. Targeted poverty alleviation is not just about financial aid. We need to take care of the mental health of citizens. Under the Strive and Rise programs, 90% of the students show an increase of self-confidence. Under the Community Living program, 95% of the participants think that their living environment has improved. 90% of the participants think their network has been upgraded, and the school-based aftercare service also helped. I think we should continue to enhance these programs and incorporate them into our first 5-year plan to make sure that we can maximize the outcome. Here I'd like to talk about 2 issues. First, poverty can become risks, and how should we treat the risks? Some scholars said living costs have been on the rise and the labor force has been shrinking, and therefore poverty has become a territory-wide problem. If we give poverty a fixed definition, it may aggravate the problem. Some marginalized families, they fail to meet the thresholds and cannot get the subsidies. And with rental income, their lives are even harder. For young people, it's hard for them to move up the social ladder. And all these target groups, they are subject to risks. The EU this year released a poverty reduction strategy, and we should learn from this framework. Under this framework, a goal is established. The goal is to lower the number of people that fall under the poverty line. An alliance has been established by the EU to encourage participation of various sectors. The EU is of the view that minimum wage rate as well as other initiatives can help them lift about 15 million people of poverty. Of course, we cannot replicate the model of the EU. However, we should learn from this model. The model of the EU shows that we need to adopt preventive measures. Our preventive measures should be able to address aging population as well as housing problems. Also, our poverty reduction strategies should be linked to other strategies. We should leverage the opportunities brought by the Northern Metropolis. Apart from developing land, we should, in the Northern Metropolis project, take care of the vulnerable groups. Population rapidly increases in the Northern Metropolis, and we therefore need to pay more attention to the disadvantaged groups. Mr. Lam Chun-sing said, in the first 5-year plan, we need to come up with measures to help the vulnerable. We need to create job opportunities. Some may think that development has nothing to do with alleviating poverty. Well, the structural problem covers housing, employment, and elderly care. If we are to prevent risks in these areas, we need to come up with better poverty alleviation policies. If we aren't able to support the vulnerable, they will fall under the poverty line. Take caregivers of elderly people and persons with disabilities. If these caregivers collapse, the entire family will be at risk. So these families should be incorporated into our identification system so that we can cope with the demographic change in the Northern Metropolis and that we can move with the times. I agree that the government has changed from being passive to proactive. The issues we face are complex, so we need to build a stronger safety net so that everyone in need will not be neglected. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Scott Leung. Thank you, President. The government has recently released a report on targeted poverty alleviation. It covers a number of measures, and it shows that the government has yielded outcome in helping the vulnerable. It deserves our recognition. The government has changed from being passive to proactive in its anti-poverty efforts. It also helps citizens move up the social ladder. I acknowledge that. However, in order to effectively alleviate poverty, we need to identify who needs help. The report covers 7 domains and 21 indicators, and these are used to decide who are in poverty. I have some questions, and therefore I thank Mr. Lam for the motion. It gives us an opportunity to have a discussion, and it gives a chance for the Secretary to explain further about this report to us. The report covers 3 target groups: subdivided unit residents, single-parent families, as well as all elderly households. I agree that we should prioritize them. However, my question is whether this screening mechanism would enable targeted poverty alleviation. One of the target groups are single-parent families. The report says families with children aged 12 years old or below, some of them earn about 20,000 $3,000 every month, and it is close to the median monthly income of other households. Would we not be able to allocate resources in a targeted manner if we gauge these groups this way? If a family fails to meet a threshold, they may not be able to get targeted support. Over the past 10 to 20 years, I have seen many families living in poverty. Even if we adopt indicators, we may omit certain families. Take a 3-person household as an example. They live in a tenement building in Shamshui-po. The father earns about $10,000. The mother is a full-time housewife. She has to cook every day and takes care of her parents. And she has a son who has just graduated and earns about $18,000. And this family earns about $30,000. However, deducting expenses, they only have about $10,000 of saving. The son has just graduated and he has to pay off the student loan. And this family does not live in subdivided unit, and they are not all elderly households. So they are not categorized as one of the target groups. So I want to know if this young person in particular will be able to move up the social ladder. A person's monthly income can more or less reflect his living standard, as well as how much he is impacted by the economy. I agree that only looking at a person's income cannot help us decide whether the person lives in poverty. While I don't think we should only look at a person's income is an important indicator. If a person's basic salary does not meet a certain threshold, regardless of how healthy or educated that person is, that person might still see himself as living in poverty. So I think income can be a basic indicator for a person who fails to meet a certain level of income and is incorporated into the scope for review, then we can truly provide targeted assistance. The set of new indicators should include clear KPIs. That way, we will be objectively monitoring the effectiveness of our targeted poverty alleviation strategy. I agree that we should empower our citizens. We should upgrade and upskill the grassroots people. Apart from helping those living in poverty, in the long run, we need to do more. We should offer more support to young people. We should expand the Child Development Fund, and we should upgrade the Strive and Rise program. We should encourage employers to put in place a flexible work arrangement. We should help women join the workforce. We should upskill the grassroots so that they could be self-reliant. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Xiuhong. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Lam Chun-sing's motion on continuously reviewing the targeted poverty alleviation strategy. Our country's effort in poverty alleviation is well recognized. In the 15th five-year plan, it stipulated that we should strengthen efforts to guarantee and improve people's livelihood and solidly advance common prosperity for all people. We are going to formulate our own 5-year plan, and we have to dovetail with national strategies. This term of the government have established a policy directions for targeted poverty alleviation. Now we no longer focus on poverty line. We have created a multidimensional analytical framework. Last week, a report on impact of targeted poverty alleviation strategy was published. 3 priority target groups were mentioned, namely elderly singleton, single-parent families, and those living in subdivided units. The government is improving poverty alleviation indicators and the assessment tool. We are no longer defining poverty. This help remove labels against those in poverty. I think that the government now has set the tools to detect and identify those in need. Those living in subdivided units or elderly singleton, they're not necessarily poor. According to the 2020 Poverty Situation Report of Hong Kong, it is mentioned that whether or not children, working poor, new immigrants should be considered target groups should depend on data. Among the 3 priority target groups, there are about 1.13 million people living they cover about 1.13 million people. There are some 210,000 people living in subdivided units, and there are some 720,000 elderly people living in subdivided units. According to the 2020 poverty report, the population in the target group haven't really changed. We have about 750,000 single-parent families, and families with children living in subdivided units amount to about 90,000 people. Now we have 310,000 people in the priority target groups compared to 1.6 million in 2020. It seems that the poverty population have dropped. Now, on how we can identify people in poverty, we have to rely on data. Without a poverty line, we will not have an assessment tool to monitor the trend of poverty. I think that the government should establish a data bureau to collect data, collect information, to analyze the latest poverty situation in Hong Kong as well as trend, so that we can build a comprehensive assessment mechanism to analyze the impact of structural change in industries to the poor and the grassroots people. This is how we can redistribute resources and implement more effective housing education policies. This is how we can narrow the income gap. Targeted poverty alleviation policies should not just be about allowances and subsidy. We need other measures, such as the community living room scheme. I think that the most effective way for us to help them is to shorten the waiting time for public rental housing. The Strive and Rise program help the participants expand their people network. This will help us alleviate intergenerational poverty. However, artificial intelligence is the reason for a widened digital divide among students. So I think that the government need to create a fair social ladder for grassroots young people so that they can move upwards. The 15th five-year plan says that we need to be fair. I think that will inspire our own poverty alleviation policies. Thank you. Mr. Wu Yingpang. Thank you. I thank Mr. Lam Chun-sing for moving the original motion. The 15th five-year plan stipulates strengthening efforts to guarantee and improve people's livelihood and solidly advancing common prosperity for all people. This is not just a blueprint for our social and economic development for the next 5 years. This lays a solid foundation and important strategic directions for our own Hong Kong's 5-year plan. Our country's efforts in lifting people out of poverty is well recognized. Our country stresses people-centric policies on poverty alleviation. They formulate strategies tailored to different provinces and municipalities. They have a dynamic monitoring mechanism to lift people out of poverty. I think that all these experiences are very inspiring. I'm glad to see how this term of the government have demonstrated creativity and innovation in implementing poverty alleviation measures. They now no longer rely on income to set the poverty line. they have established a multi-dimensional analytical framework. This is a breakthrough because now we're no longer relying on a set of figures, and this will help us allocate resources to those that are most in need. And this is a more scientific way for us to implement poverty alleviation policies. I have a few suggestions. First, I think that we need to establish a transitional support mechanism. We should not just cater to the extremely poor. We have to take care of those who have just escaped poverty, especially those at the borderline. The government need to set a buffer zone for those who have just got out of poverty so that they will not fall back into poverty due to minor economic fluctuations such as healthcare needs. Second, I think that we need to establish a dynamic database for the disadvantaged. The government have to consolidate data from the housing department, the social welfare department, and the hospital authority, and they should connect the district care teams to create a targeted support team. Third, I think that we need to improve all schemes that encourage employment. We have to offer flexible working hours for the grassroots people, and we also need to introduce artificial intelligence training for them. This is how we can help capable and employed rejoin the labor market so that they will rely less on social welfare policies. Lastly, I think that we need to include targeted poverty alleviation into the Hong Kong's 5-year plan. We should not just rely on the social welfare department to work on this. I think that we need to have a set of cross-departmental strategy. We have to set an indicator based on the disposable income of our people, and we need to set a target in narrowing income gap. At the same time, we have to build more traditional public rental housing, transitional housing, and light public housing. We have to reform our healthcare policies through organic coordination of policies on education, healthcare, social welfare. We'll be able to create a smooth ladder for people to move upwards. If I may remind members, the debate should end at 11:01 this morning. After Mr. Adrian Ho was spoken at about 10:23 a.m., I will ask the mover to speak, and then I will deal with the rest of the procedures. Mr. Alex Fan, President, the 15th five-year plan stipulates that we are going to advance common prosperity for all. Now I will address the directions on targeted poverty alleviation, the existing indicators, and how we should improve the assessment method. And I will give my views on those areas. The government are going to introduce 21 indicators and this 7-dimension multidimensional analytical framework, and set 3 priority target groups to implement our policies, and they no longer use the poverty line to assess the economic situation of the people. The framework of the multidimensional analytical framework of the government is in alignment with those of other countries. The government, well, the poverty rate have increased from 20.6% in 2009 to 23.6% in 2020. This reflects that an only single indicator cannot reflect the structural cause of poverty. Some other reasons, such as living space, stress, and possibility of upward movement, are not included in the indicator. So I think that is more effective for us to set 3 priority target groups to help them. And I hope that the government will continue to improve the application of big data to mobilize carers and identify hidden elderly. I was a mentor in the Strive and Rise program. The relevant program helps grassroots students broaden their horizon, build their confidence. I hope that the government will offer transitional support to target groups so that they will not fall back into poverty just because of minor economic fluctuations. The core to poverty alleviation is to guard against risk. The government said that the definition of high-risk elderly household is those above 80 years old, and they're thinking about extending the definition to cover those below 80 years old. I am encouraged by that, and I hope that the government will continue to support carers and offer, for example, respite service and flexible working hours for them. If we don't publish poverty line anymore, it's difficult for us to assess the progress of poverty alleviation. I fully understand the criticism, and I think that we need to regularize living subsidy for the elderly, the working family allowance, so on and so forth. If we can introduce scientific ways to set some threshold, I think that will make our allocation of public policy more targeted. So that's why I support Mr. Lee Chen-keung's amendment. I think that we can introduce MIS method. This method comes from UK and it was introduced into Singapore in 2019. It assessed the actual income needed to maintain basic daily lives. It was updated in 2023. It covered elderly singleton, working family, so on and so forth. According to the study, a 2 to 4 people household need about 6,000 Singaporean dollars every month to maintain basic daily lives, and that's far from the median income of average household in Singapore. It shows that if we just use a single poverty line to assess the situation, it cannot reflect the actual circumstances of the poor. There is also another indicator, AROP, in the European Union. This is how they assess the situation of poverty there. I think that's similar to our 3 poverty target groups in the sense that they use those methods to identify those most in need. I think that the government should publish their systems and clarify all the policies. Thank you.
Dr. Thomas So. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the motion moved by Mr. Lam. Targeted poverty alleviation. That gives members of the public the impression the documentary of combating poverty in mainland China. Hong Kong is a mature economy. As long as members of the public are willing to work, or when they are willing to receive assistance from the government, they will not live from hand to mouth. Therefore, the targeted poverty alleviation strategy of the current term government is different from that of the Chinese mainland. We dedicate resources to the people who need them the most. According to the budget 2026 to 27, social welfare expenditure totaled $135 billion, plus medical health care $118 billion. They together account for 43% of the total expenditure of the government. This shows the government's resolve to improve livelihood of people in Hong Kong. It's not just a numbers game. We need to make sure every single penny is put to good use. The Commission on Poverty released a report on impact of targeted poverty alleviation strategy in Hong Kong. The government no longer used the poverty line to measure the population of the poor in Hong Kong. Instead, it used a multidimensional analysis or framework to accord priority to three main target groups: SDU households, single-parent households, and all elderly households. These three target groups need to cover most of the people who need help. That being said, the government needs to understand there are traditional categories of people need assistance as well. Take a three-person household as an example. One takes care of the children in the family, whereas the other brings home the bacon. Then, if the household income is below $20,000, according to the previous definition, that family will be classified as poor. However, under the new framework, as long as that family doesn't live inside an SDU or in SDU, probably they're living in an old tenement building or public rental housing, then they would not be covered under the three main target groups. What worries members of the public is that there might be decrease in social assistance provided to them. The report also highlights SDU households as one of the target groups. It appears clear on paper, but then the definition requires further explanation. Is it true that all SDU households in Hong Kong are economically disadvantaged? Especially for SDU households with children, definitely they deserve assistance from the government. However, a lot of single youngsters, teenagers, or those who come to Hong Kong to study are residing in SDUs as well, and they are not targets of targeted poverty alleviation. The government is driving the policy of basic housing units and transitional housing in order to bid farewell to subpar subdivided units. So when they move out of SDUs, does it mean that the government's poverty alleviation is successful? Are they no longer the disadvantaged groups in Hong Kong? We need to think long and hard about the strategies and target groups of targeted poverty alleviation. In general, I agree on the directions of the government when it comes to targeted poverty alleviation, but we do need to strike a delicate and a good balance. The working poor families need support. Targeted poverty alleviation should be based on needs, not just by living conditions. I hope that the government will set up a dynamic assessment mechanism to ensure that no one falls through the cracks just because they aren't under the three main target groups. I so submit. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you. In 2013, President Xi Jinping referred to the targeted poverty alleviation strategies. We need to proactively take strategies to combat poverty. The Commission on Poverty has been reshuffled recently, and the report was announced last week. That is a report on impact of targeted poverty alleviation strategy in Hong Kong. There are a total of 7 domains and 21 macro indicators, which identify 3 main target groups. I believe we need to clamp down on abuse of social welfare benefits. We need to identify those who really need help from the government. On combating abuse of social welfare benefits, these cases appeared from time to time, such as a report released by the Office of the Ombudsman review falsified or false declaration of assets or concealment of their assets. However, they are still occupying public rental housing in public rental housing car parks. There are luxury cars parked inside these car parks. They are as expensive as millions of dollars. However, the owner still can apply for housing through the green form. As at the end of March, the administration has successfully taken back 10,000 units which had been abused and illegally occupied. $1 million per unit. The government has saved $10 billion altogether. I believe the administration should continue with this work and flexibly deploy resources to investigate abuse cases. The administration can conduct rate checks to homes and can also check whether the declaration of assets is correct. They need to check whether applicants have any properties outside Hong Kong. We need to enhance deterrence by enhancing penalties. There are views that employees ask their employers not to give them a salary hike in order to prevent from being ineligible for applying for public rental housing. I suggest that the government should enhance a housing ladder for young people. We want income growth to be translated into better living conditions for the young in Hong Kong. We should make sure that the policy is implemented towards the right direction. We need to identify those falling through the cracks. In some cases where the elderly take care of the elderly, some people succumb to pressure, leading to tragedies. There are also cases in which some people lack care and they pass away in the end. We need to identify grassroots who require assistance, and we need to provide a financial lifeline to them. There are many community groups and social welfare groups in Hong Kong. They have a massive network. The government can collaborate more with these organizations. A regular cooperation mechanism could be set up in order to eradicate the vicious cycle of intergenerational poverty. This will be conducive to upward mobility of the next generations. We need to dedicate resources in a targeted manner to those who really need them. Therefore, we need to clamp down on abuse, and we also need to identify disadvantaged groups. The government should work with different groups in society in order to enhance the effectiveness of targeted poverty alleviation strategies. I so submit. Thank you. Ms. Jeannie Mann. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of Mr. Lam's original motion. Targeted poverty alleviation is all about enhancing upward mobility and helping people to be lifted out of poverty. We need to identify those who really need help. We need to make sure that those who need help will be helped. The key is to identify those who really need help. This is exactly how we can enhance the use of resources. The government used to have a poverty line. Only income was factored in. However, in the lately released report, the singular poverty line definition would be abandoned. There wouldn't be any population figures in relation to poor being announced. What is important is that we shouldn't label them. But I have to emphasize that a poverty line isn't used to label anyone. It is used to identify low-income groups in order to provide targeted help to them. Indeed, income isn't the only factor in determining poverty, but definitely it is the easiest measurable, quantifiable target. The poor face different issues: education, healthcare, and so on. I agree that the government introduces a multidimensional analysis framework alongside 21 macro indicators. I hope that the government will continue to make good use of the income indicator in order to prevent high-risk people in Hong Kong from falling into poverty. The three target groups: SDU households, single-parent households, and all elderly households. Carers may be covered in the future. And I believe some people will receive less assistance in the future. I hope that the government will continue to review target groups, especially children who lose both of their parents as well as the working poor in Hong Kong. If the government has the resolve to implement targeted poverty alleviation strategies, we need to cover members of the public who need resources the most. With the tripartite collaboration among the government, business, and the community, we can see that some of the policies have yielded significant results. Community care teams only visit seniors who are aged 80 or above. This is actually a blind spot. Some people fall through the cracks. Not all people suffering from mental health issues are seniors, but they also warrant our attention. They need to be helped. So I suggest having a one-stop consultation services in the community living rooms. This is to allow members of the public to access useful information so that they can apply for some schemes to help themselves. Social welfare workers are professionals. There are different specialties. Some help children, some help seniors. However, if a case cuts across different specialties, they may not be developed in some subsidy schemes rolled out by the government. So I suggest providing more training and support to community living room social welfare workers. They need to have access to sufficient information in order to help members of the public who require assistance. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Chow Siu-chung, thank you. The Commission on Poverty recently released a report on targeted poverty alleviation. It covers 4 effective outcomes. The after-school childcare service has been effective. The report says 21% of the full-time or working parents, after sending their children to the school-based scheme, they have been able to secure a job, and every month they earn $3,500 more. It shows that the school-based scheme has been effective. The EU this year rolled out an anti-poverty strategy. Every year in the EU, there is 1/3 of the population that is lifted out of the poverty. And they get out of poverty usually because there are changes to their jobs. The EU therefore sees employment as the main means to lift people out of poverty. The targeted strategy is to help those to secure a good job. From the EU's practice, we see that employment can help people get out of poverty. With structural change to our industries as well as the common adoption of AI, there have been mismatches in the labor market. The government earlier says that university graduates in Hong Kong have been affected by the use of AI. In fact, the impact do not only affect our university graduates. Some public organizations said they will make use of machines to replace human security guards or cleaning workers. A lack of skills would lead to unemployment. Therefore, the government should allocate additional resources to upskill grassroots workers so that they can acquire new skills. The future Upskill Hong Kong should play a better role in this regard. Targeting new positions that arise because of AI, there should be courses on those so as to upgrade our grassroots workers and to reduce unemployment. I am concerned about the supplementary labor scheme and the impact of it on the local market. Recently, the government relaxed the conditions for employers to import labor. I'm worried that this would provide a greater incentive for employers to bring in more foreign labor for security guard or cleaning workers' posts. For those who have been taking up casual jobs, they will get fewer job opportunities. I hope the government will monitor the impact of the supplementary labor scheme on the relevant posts so that there won't be people who lose their jobs because of this. I'm also concerned about the working poor. Our problem is worse than South Korea, Taiwan, and other places. In those two places, the minimum wage rate is $53 and $49 per hour, respectively. In Hong Kong, the minimum wage rate is $43.1 per hour, and so those who earn a minimum wage gained about $9,000 per month, and the rent is about $5,200 per month in Kowloon. How can we safeguard the grassroots workers? The existing minimum wage regime cannot provide a safety net. As the government reviews the minimum wage rate, it should include other indicators in the formula so that the formula will not be impractical. Lastly, the subsidy schemes allow low-income households that meet the threshold to have extra cash. I hope the government can relax the relevant subsidy schemes so that those who want to be self-reliant can get relief. I so submit I support the motion and the amendments. Mr. Perry Yu. Deputy President, the Chief Secretary recently released the report on targeted poverty alleviation. I'm happy to see that the government has yielded results in its previous anti-poverty policies, targeting subdivided unit tenants, all elderly households, and single-parent families. There are schemes such as the Strive and Rise program, the Community Living Room program, as well as the After-School Care Service scheme. The KPIs for these schemes have been exceeded, and I acknowledge the work of the government. Resources are limited, so we need to allocate resources in a precise manner. In the past, we look at those who fall under the poverty line based on their income, and we could not effectively identify the right target. The report introduced a number of macro indicators to better outline the picture of the poor population. This is to help us identify the right targets. I agree with this. Take elderly care as an example. We look at whether the elders need long-term support and whether they get community support services. According to the report, we also look at whether these elders are lonely and whether they have a smartphone. These indicators help us identify accurately who are at the bottom of the ladder, and this helps us allocate resources in a precise manner. I am concerned about the development of young people. As we identify the vulnerable, we need to eradicate intergenerational poverty. I think this is the key of our anti-poverty strategy. We need to make sure that all groups have the opportunity to move up the social ladder. Young people from all backgrounds should be able to move up the ladder through education and employment. They should be able to change their lives this way and help their families get out of poverty. There are studies that show that 58.7% of the respondents said there are not enough opportunities to help young people move up the ladder. The industries in Hong Kong are too homogeneous, and a recent summit report showed that from 2003, the number of workers who graduate from university and take entry posts have increased from 66,000 to about 200,000 in 2014, and the percentage increased from 12.4 to 17.69%. This shows that the qualifications of university students cannot keep up with the change. We have to make sure everyone can benefit from the economic growth, and we should tackle intergenerational poverty. At source, to solve the problem, we need to develop diversified industries, and this is how we can lift people out of poverty. The Chief The financial secretary recently in his blog says that we need to come up with a chain that covers various industries, and this is to include everyone in our society and to make sure that they have quality job opportunities. The first 5-year plan should help us transform our economic growth, and we need to enhance people's sense of gain. Therefore, we need to deepen economic reform. We need to leverage the northern metropolis so as to tackle the homogeneity of our industries. We need to promote VPAT as well as the transformation of the Employees Retraining Board. For young people, we need to help them move up the ladder so that they can enjoy the economic outcomes and to enjoy a better life. I so submit. Thank you. Dr. Eric Yim. The National 15th Five-Year Plan clearly states that we need to further the protection of our people so as to advance common prosperity for all. I thank Mr. Lam for the motion. It gives us an opportunity to explore anti-poverty strategies. Since the opening up and reform of our country, 100 million people have been lifted out of poverty. This is a miracle and a great accomplishment, and this provides valuable experience for Hong Kong. Hong Kong is one of the first advanced economies in the world. And poverty is one problem that has not been fully addressed in Hong Kong. To alleviate poverty in a targeted manner is a challenge for the current government. I hope the SAR government can learn from the mainland and deepen its efforts in combating, alleviating, and preventing poverty, and provide more support to the disadvantaged groups. I have the following suggestions. First, the core of targeted poverty alleviation strategy in the mainland is that we need to build our industries. There are 800 or so poverty lines in our country, and there are also leading industries. About 3/4 of the poverty population that managed to get out of poverty relied on the development of industries. And the working force stayed at about 30 million. We need to upskill our workers so as to ensure that CSSA recipients can take the initiative to get a job. Also, we need to provide targeted assistance. In our country, as they offer targeted assistance, they cover various groups. This is to ensure that every target group get the assistance they need. In Hong Kong, we can have groups and enterprises that help identify target groups. The Commission on Poverty currently has set 3 target groups. They are subdivided unit tenants, single-parent families, as well as all elderly households. This is a good start. The key is that the resources can be channeled to the target groups. For single-parent families with no income and all elderly households that suffer from chronic illnesses, we need to help them at source. Third, Chinese enterprises have been contributing to Hong Kong, and they have the financial ability as well as rich experience. A lot of Chinese enterprises in Hong Kong have set up charitable funds. They have also launched various care programs in the community. They can be good working partners for the SAR government. However, we lack representatives from Chinese enterprises in the Commission on Poverty. We should allow more people from Chinese enterprises to join the poverty alleviation projects. Also, combating, alleviating, and preventing poverty should be one strategy of the SAR government. The SAR government is formulating the first 5-year plan for Hong Kong. I hope that the government can take this opportunity to incorporate targeted poverty alleviation into the plan and come up with an accountability system. And there should be dynamic planning for targeted poverty alleviation. If there are KPIs set, we will be able to enhance the sense of fulfillment and gain as well as happiness of our citizens. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Yang Wen-kit. Thank you, President. Recently, the Commission on Poverty just published the report on impact of targeted poverty alleviation strategy in Hong Kong. The report is of 220 pages and it shows the outcome of the government's efforts. The KPI for all of the schemes, including the Strive and Rise program, the pilot program on community living room, the school-based after-school care service schemes, and the district care teams scheme on supporting elderly in cares. All the KPIs for them are met. The government no longer rely now on poverty line. We have now created 3 target groups to help. They are namely singleton elderly, families living in subdivided unit, and single-parent families. If we just rely on poverty line, then elderly people with no mortgage will be ignored. For example, the government now also introduced this idea of value transfer value to quantify the support the government have for the disadvantaged. This help people understand better the undertaking of the government in poverty alleviation. Can we actually meet our targets? We have to wait and see. The government, I think, should remove barriers among different government departments. We should connect all data. I think that the government should include, say, high-risk elderly, people with chronic illness into their target groups, and we should encourage district community care teams to intervene and visit these target groups. Many members today talk about how we should empower people instead of just giving them help in terms of subsidy and allowances. Targeted poverty alleviation should not just be about financial support. I think that we need to leverage professionals to help people in need plan their lives better, offer guidance on their career development. We need to offer them skills training tailored to the age and the background. And I think that we need to offer diversified career pathways for our young people. When we try to alleviate people out of poverty, we need to give them a clear path upward. I think that the government should encourage enterprises to hire grassroots people so that they earn a stable income. The report says that we need to institutionalize the tripartite collaboration among the community, the business, and the government. And it is suggested that a platform be established to consolidate resources from welfare organizations, from the business sector, from the government. Lastly, I think that our poverty alleviation strategies must be people-centric. We need to work on areas such as people's housing, people's traffic needs, and I think that we have to establish a child healthcare vouchers to alleviate the burden of grassroots family. I visited many families living in subdivided units in Kowloon. Children living there cannot focus on their homework. They don't have enough space to revise their schoolwork. I think that by having a community community living room, we can help our children. The targets of community living room is people living in subdivided units, but those not living in subdivided units also need more space. So I hope that the government will extend community living room to also grassroots people not living in subdivided units, and I hope that the government will offer more public rental housing so that grassroots people can save on rent and use the savings to help their next generation move upwards and alleviate intergenerational poverty. Mr. Vincent Chang. Thank you. I thank Mr. Lam Chun-sing for moving the motion on targeted poverty alleviation strategy. In order for us to be targeted, we need to identify the most disadvantaged or fragile group in the society so that we can allocate resources more effectively. The government just published a report on targeted poverty alleviation strategy, and it reviews the effectiveness of the government's policies and support. I read it many times, and much information in the report is very much useful to us, especially on the housing ladder targeting subdivided units. Director Xia Baolong just visited a light public housing in Yaopok Road in Yunlong. That reminded of my work on helping subdivided units. There are about 107,000 subdivided units in Hong Kong, and there are some 30,000 households with families and with children. The pilot program on community living room just rolled out for 3 years, and the satisfaction rate is about 70%. I received much positive feedback from users of the living room. Many NGOs said that they want to continue to work with the government on the pilot program. I put an oral question earlier. I think that the government should consolidate their experience and extend service to more people and build more community living room in district clusters with subdivided unit. There is an analysis on the structure of subdivided units in the report. There are some 40,000 singleton living in subdivided units. That accounts for about 40% of the total number of people living in subdivided units. But there is no breakdown on how many of these singletons are elderly. The government anti-poverty strategies are more family-centric, but for elderly singletons, single persons living in subdivided unit, they're not that much supported. So I hope that as a next step, the government will step up support for elderly, singleton, and single persons so that they can be housed in transitional housing so that they can live in elderly-friendly community. I visited Singleton's subdivided unit household. They said that they find it difficult to visit a community living room because they don't feel comfortable there. In order for us to address the housing, the poverty-related issues, we have to solve the housing problem. So I am glad to see that the government is trying to improve the housing ladder and include transitional housing and light public housing into the housing ladder. And I think that this measure is an important way forward, and this address the long transition between substandard housing to traditional public rental housing. I do think that traditional public housing and light public housing are essential, and I think that we need to deepen it in the next 5 years. We have to clarify the positioning of light public housing, and we need to work on the basic housing unit ordinance. I will not go into details, and I hope that now the Housing Bureau and the Social Welfare Department will continue to work together so that we can bid farewell to subdivided units. I also like to talk about intergenerational poverty. There is news seeing that some ethnic minority university graduates, after they leave schools, they find it difficult to locate a job because of not being able to speak Chinese. According to a 2021 population census, it is said that we have over 300,000 ethnic minority and the unemployment rate is about 7%. That's far higher than the 5% of our overall population at that time. And I hope that we can help this group of ethnic minority who are young so that we help them alleviate from poverty, and hope that we can offer more Chinese courses for them so that they can move up the social ladder. President, targeted poverty alleviation is how we maintain harmony in the society. I hope that the government will deepen cross-departmental collaboration so that we create a sense of happiness for the people. Professor Priscilla Leung. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Lam Chun-sing for moving this motion in time on continuously reviewing the targeted poverty alleviation strategy. The key is targeted poverty alleviation. The Secretary just published a report on impact of targeted poverty alleviation strategy in Hong Kong. Many comprehensive policies are mentioned in the report. Now we no longer rely on a clear poverty line to define groups in need. It is said that we need to help the disadvantaged in a more targeted manner. Now, my understanding is this. It seems that we are covering a larger group of people in need because previously those above the poverty line would not receive assistance. Recently, there are many cases of strategies. There are 2 elderly people aged over 70 passed away in their homes. Before, there was a 15-year-old young person who need to take care of their family. They worked multiple jobs, and when he was 17 years old, he had to, because take care of her sister who is mentally incapacitated, he was so stressed that he decided to commit suicide. We are such a rich society. We need to help those in need. Now, I'd like to highlight one group, that is elderly poor or poor elderly. In 2034, there are about 1/3 of our population that is aged over 65. In 10 years' time, many people here will be over 70 years old. In the baby boomer period, those born at that time will be aged 80 or 90. When this group of people work, they were middle class. But as they retire, they fall below the poverty line, and they have to sometimes suspend their insurance policy. So I think that we need to plan for their health care, plan for their housing. I know that we are working towards the right direction. We have a fantastic healthcare system. But in the future, I don't think that we can rely on the existing system to offer services for such a large group of elderly. If we don't roll out measures in collaboration with the other cities in the Greater Bay Area, we will not be able to make it, because 10 years are a short period of time. Second, while district care teams members are volunteers, I think that we need to give them more resources. I think that the Social Welfare Department will be able to calculate the number of service users in 10 years' time, because many people are about to retire. Retirees may not be able to self-sustain without a salary. 10 years ago, I'd raised this idea of silver economy. I think that we should encourage elderly to work, and I think that we should help those that don't have jobs. Second, I think that we also should encourage silver re-employment. We're not asking them to work as a district care team members. We have to prepare for the large number of elderly people we have in the next 15 years. Those who are the younger olds, they may help the older olds cook, they may help them wash their clothes. Third, I think that we need to regularize the district care teams. We need to encourage more volunteers to join them. I think that we need to rely on data. I think that this is important for elderly. We're going to abstain from voting for Mr. CHAN Cho-kwong, Mr. Lee Chun-keung, Mr. Tang Ka-piu's amendment. The government has abandoned the definition of poverty line. Mr. Chan Cho-kwong mentioned about poverty and falling back into poverty, and I will abstain from voting for these amendments.
Mr. Lam Chun-sing, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Ms. Elaine CHIK, Mr. Chan Cho-kwong, Mr. Lee Chun-keung, and Mr. Bill Tang for their amendments. They have enriched my original motion. Ms. Elaine CHIK said in the amendment that the core lies in intergenerational poverty. I believe we need to first of all deal with the working poor issue, and then we also need to make sure there are fair education opportunity for our younger generations. We also need to ensure upward mobility for the younger generations. Mr. CHAN Cho-kwong said that we need to prevent people who have been lifted out of poverty from slipping into poverty once again. Recently, there are homeless people living on the street. There are also people who are between jobs and they cannot afford rents. Can low interest rate loans be provided to these people? Some grassroots need to meet daily expenses while looking for jobs. If they have subsidies, then this will prevent them from sliding into poverty. Mr. Lee Chun-keung said that we need to make sure resources are put to good use. I agree that public funds need to be used well. They need to be used in the most targeted manner. The government can set up a mechanism to monitor the situation. For the people who have just failed to meet CSSA requirements, probably their lives would be rendered even more difficult than CSSA recipients. Therefore, they should be covered by the target groups under targeted poverty alleviation. Mr. Bill Tang said in his amendment that we need to narrow the disparity between the rich and the poor. Some people think that no matter how rich one is, it has nothing to do with you. What matters is that grassroots need to have a good living condition. We need to help those who need help the most with targeted poverty alleviation. It is the most important to help them. The Gini coefficient shows that the wealth disparity is very serious in Hong Kong. When we do not use the definition of poverty line to measure poverty in Hong Kong, members' suggestions are actually reasonable. If grassroots cannot share the economic fruits of Hong Kong, then this will lead to instability and a widening wealth gap in Hong Kong. Does it mean that the local market is ineffective? Does the government need to step in order to narrow the gap? Should we use the Gini coefficient or the 90% percentile to measure poverty? Whatever indicators we use, the wealth gap is still worth our consideration. Thank you.
Secretary for Labor and Welfare, I thank Mr. Lam again for moving this meaningful motion. I thank Ms. Elaine CHIK, Mr. CHAN Cho-kwong, Mr. Michael Lee, and Mr. Bill Tang for their amendments. Yesterday and today, there have been in total 40 members who have expressed their views on this motion. I here thank them for their valuable views. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a consolidated reply. Some members talked about the poverty line, and they spoke about the limitations of poverty line. As stated in the report, there are many limitations to the poverty line we used. It only looks at one dimension. It focuses on people's income, and this hardly reflects the actual situation. This is especially true as we have become an aged society. 25% of our population is aged 65 or above, and a lot of them do not have a job. And if they do not have an income, they'll be regarded as living in poverty. If you look at the report, among all elderly households, over half, that is about 57% of them, own a property, and they have paid out the mortgage for their properties. And about 80% of them benefit from our cash allowances. Classifying them as poor simply because they are retired and have no income is a fundamental miscalculation, and that could lead to vastly distorted conclusions. A more realistic issue is that the poverty line fails to account for citizens' non-financial needs as well as the government's non-cash assistance. It provides us only with cold statistics that fail to address concrete questions. Some say that without a poverty line, we wouldn't know who are living in poverty. These are just statistics. If you ask people who are living in poverty, they would tell them yes or no, but they wouldn't be able to tell you the reasons behind. So our strategy is that we want targeted assistance. We want to tackle the problems in a concrete manner. In this motion debate, we know that people in the grassroots, they face various problems, including housing, health, physical problem, family care duties, social isolation, and limited avenues for advancements as well as intergenerational poverty. Cash relief alone is insufficient to tackle the root issues and improve their living standards. For the current term government, our vision is that poverty alleviation is all about people. As noted in the report, all elderly households, even with financial security and stable housing, still face hardships. As we age, our health and self-care abilities start to deteriorate. Therefore, under the targeted poverty alleviation strategy, through multidimensional analysis, we learned that all elderly households need care and support from the community. To address this, we have rolled out tailored initiatives, with district care teams visiting or reaching out to these households to provide support. By support, we mean that where necessary, the district care teams can refer cases to social workers for follow-up. An income-based poverty line neither directs our attention to the non-financial needs of elderly households, nor can it measure the value of our effort, so we stick to a people-centric approach. Some have suggested whether we should adopt the poverty line and the targeted poverty alleviation strategies in parallel. This sounds fair. However, as I said, there have been various limitations to adopting a poverty line, and the previous poverty line fell short of providing objective data on poverty conditions or policy effectiveness. Instead, it risks misdirecting public discussion. We were simply looking at blurred statistical figures rather than getting bogged down on how to revise the poverty line. We should address the pressing needs of the public and focus our efforts on providing targeted assistance to those at the bottom of the ladder. Some members said the government did not define poverty. That's not true. We raised these anti-poverty strategies because we want to address the pressing needs of our people. What does it mean by poverty? It means hidden caregivers, high-risk caregivers, homeless, persons with disabilities, single-parent families, those who do not have digital literacy, the middle class, the sandwich class, working poor, new arrivals, ethnic minorities, and those who live in poverty in the grassroots. So some say that the 3 target groups are not enough, but there are 2 layers to our strategy. The core is the universal services we provide. Those include social welfare, healthcare, education, and public housing. These areas account for 60%, that is over $350 billion of our recurrent expenditure. They will account for over $65 billion of our recurrent expenditure in this financial year. This is how we build the safety net. There are various issues that lead to poverty, and therefore we provide all kinds of services to help these people. Every year we spend some $300 to $400 billion. It is just like our infrastructure. You are used to this infrastructure. These infrastructure have been highly efficient and reliable, and that's why you don't find any problems to these infrastructure because they have been playing their roles. However, when you travel outside of Hong Kong and you do not get the public transport you need and no one served you, you would start to notice that we provide good services in Hong Kong. And when you are met with inclement weather outside of Hong Kong, you start to appreciate the city because there's no flooding in Hong Kong. So the $300 to $400 billion we spend every year are to provide universal services. People are concerned about the working poor. If you turn to page 144 of our report, it talks about a case in which a working poor receives cash allowances from the government. These are real-life stories. There's a QR code here, and you can hear the voice of the person in the real-life case. I hope that you can listen to these real-life cases. Say a child lives in a tenement building and in a 2 to 3 person household. What should we do to help that child's education from kindergarten to university? It costs $2.5 million per person. And if you get textbook allowance and you get about 500,000 more. So from kindergarten to university, each child gets $3 million from the government. And this money is spent to help young people become self-reliant. If you turn to the chapter about social welfare, that's page 126. There's a clear table outlining how many people we have supported. In total, 3.76 million people. So we have all kinds of support offering to those in poverty. And this is our cornerstone. We have adopted an internationally recognized indicator. For the general public, if we tell them we've spent $300 or $400 billion, they may not have an impression what it means. That's why we've adopted the social transfer values. You could refer to the details by reading the report. Paragraphs 1 Page 168 and 169 of the report covers that. It talks about how many resources the government has allocated. It is like we have given you a fortune package, and you open the package, you see how much money you have received from the government. So this is what the report covers. Now, apart from the different services we provide, we need to offer targeted support to those at the bottom of the ladder. The current term of the Commission on Poverty has come up with 3 target groups. There are subdivided unit tenants, single-parent families, as well as all elderly households. Moving forward, the Commission will continue to monitor the 3 target groups. This is going to be a dynamic assessment. We will continue to identify whether other groups should be included at the bottom of the ladder. Some members asked whether all subdivided unit tenants face difficulties. Well, they face different kinds of hardships. There are couples who live in subdivided units because they want to live close to their workplace. Our view is that we need to offer help to subdivided unit households with children. Children who live in such a narrow space face many limitations. Under our community living program, we want to offer most help to those with children. Over 60% of the subdivided units households have children. We have 14 community living rooms now. By the end of this year, there will be 18 of them. We hope that there could be more than 18. We've already spent the money. When all the 18 community living rooms are put in operation, we hope to help at least 10,000 subdivided unit households, of which about 6,000 of them have children. According to statistics, in Hong Kong, there are 29,000 subdivided unit households with children. If 7,000 households get help from our community living program, that means at least 1/4 of the SDU households that have children can get targeted assistance from our community living room program. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about the tragedy that took place in the Lai King estate. I've talked to the media about this. After the tragedy, we look again at how we can make use of big data to identify high-risk families. I have already asked the Social Welfare Department to step up home visits to those living in housing estates under the Housing Authority. Now, I ask them to conduct home visits to those who are aged 75 years old or above. Well, we have a priority. We have lowered the threshold because we want to expand the coverage. Once this is completed, we will extend our coverage to those aged between 70 and 75. We have the name list, and then we will expand the coverage further to cover residents of 3 Nil buildings. For example, those living in 3 Nils buildings and are aged 65 or above, and if they are CSSA recipients, they are on our list, and through district care teams, we will visit them. Also, we will work with the Hong Kong Housing Society. There are about 30,000 such households living in the housing estates under the Housing Society, and we will visit them as well. Also, we will explore with the Hospital Authority ways to identify and prioritize high-risk cases. For example, elders with dementia. We will make use of big data to identify them and visit them where necessary. We will intervene early and provide targeted support. President, over the past 4 years, the current term government has been tackling poverty, and Our view is that to provide targeted support, we should not only confine ourselves to offering financial aid. We need to provide other kinds of support to the grassroots families. That's why we have moved away from the old mindset. We adopt now a proactive approach. As stated in the report, we will be more forward-looking. We are currently formulating the first 5-year plan for Hong Kong, and helping the vulnerable will be one major vision in the 5-year plan. We will clearly include this direction in the 5-year plan. We will provide strategic guidelines. We will unite different sectors of society to take forward our work to enhance people's sense of well-being, security, and fulfillment. Members talked about the importance of data. Currently, social welfare data is scattered across various government departments, public organizations, and NGOs, which hinders comprehensive analysis. We will better integrate the data to achieve proactive identification and targeted assistance. We are now exploring a phased approach to integrate various data from different systems. We want to analyze and identify risks and promptly provide support to those in need. We want to ensure early identification and early intervention. By intervening early, we want to prevent tragedies. At the same time, this approach will allow for data-driven scientific planning of social welfare services to improve the efficiency of resource allocation. The success of targeted poverty alleviation has demonstrated the synergy created by the government, the business sector, and the community. It shows that many businesses and charitable foundations are willing to offer support. Their contributions extend beyond financial support. More importantly, they want to leverage their professional networks to provide opportunities for the disadvantaged. And that includes organizing internship programs and study tours for young people from low-income families. Also, as we implement these initiatives, we found that social welfare organizations, which are deeply rooted in their community and possess extensive practical experience, are able to make effective use of resources to provide targeted services to those in need. To strengthen this model, we will systematize the collaboration among the government, the business sector, and the community. Specifically, we will use the Commission on Poverty as a platform to combine the goodwill of the business sector with the creativity of social welfare organizations to ensure precise and accurate matching. We expect to launch a matching platform this year. We will start accepting applications this year to provide support to target groups identified by the Commission on Poverty. The above direction is people-centered, community-based, and prevention-oriented. It promotes a shift in services from passive response to proactive intervention, which is fully in line with the spirit of the outline of the National 15th Five-Year Plan. It provides a basis for further discussion and research on the phased development of Hong Kong's targeted assistance strategy over the next 5 years. As the title on the cover of the report states, collaborate for greater impact and vision targeted support. The achievements of our targeted assistance efforts rely on the strong support of all sectors of society. We will continue to work hand in hand with all sectors to further promote various initiatives, expand service coverage, and improve the quality of life for low-income families and vulnerable groups. Here, on behalf of the government, I'd like to once again thank the 40-some members for their valuable suggestions. Thank you.
I now call upon Ms. Elaine CHIK to move an amendment. Deputy President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that the amendment moved by Ms. Elaine CHIK be passed, and I'll put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the election committee and those by the functional constituencies and geographical constituencies. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Chan Cho-kwong, as the previous amendment has been passed, you may move your further amendment. Deputy President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Chan Cho-kwong be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Professor Priscilla Leung claims a division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes. Will members please proceed to vote? Please press the present button and proceed to vote. Members, please check the votes. Ms. Lau, if there are no queries, voting shall now stop and the result will be displayed. Members returned by the election committee: 38 present, 29 favor, no against, 9 abstentions. Those returned by the FC and GC: 45 present, 30 in favor, no against, 14 abstentions. As the question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present, I declare the motion passed. Dr. Junius Ho. Deputy President, I move that in the event of further divisions being claimed in respect of the motion on continuously reviewing the targeted poverty alleviation strategy in Hong Kong or any amendments thereto, this Council to proceed to each of such divisions immediately after the division bell has been rung for 1 minute. I now propose a question to you, and that is that the motion moved by Dr. Junius Ho be passed. Members, please press the present button. For those who agree, please raise your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the motion passed. I order that in the event of further divisions being claimed in respect of the motion concerned or any amendments thereto, this Council do proceed to each of such divisions immediately after the division bell has been rung for 1 minute. Mr. Michael Lee, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. Deputy President, I move my further amendment. And I propose a question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Lee Chun-keung be passed. And I put the question to you as stated. Professor Priscilla Leung claims a division. The division bell will ring for 1 minute. Voting now begins. Members, please press the present button and then proceed to vote. Please check the votes. If there are no queries, voting shall now stop and the results will be displayed. Those returned by the EC: 38 present, 32 in favor, no against, 6 abstentions. Those returned by the functional and geographical constituencies: 45 present, 33 in favor, no against, 11 abstentions. The question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the motion passed. Mr. Bill Tang, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. Deputy President, I move my further amendment. I now propose a question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Bill Tang be passed, and I'll put the question to you as stated. Professor Priscilla Leung claims a division. The division bell will ring for 1 minute. Will members please proceed to vote? Press the present button and proceed to vote. Mr. Lau Ka-keung, Mr. CHAN Cho-kwong, please check your votes. If there are no queries, voting shall not stop and the results will be displayed. Those returned by the election committee: 38 present, 32 in favor, no against, 6 abstentions. Functional and geographical constituencies: 45 present, 33 in favor, no against, 11 abstentions. The question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the motion passed. Ms. Lam Chun-sing, you still have 1 minute 50 seconds to speak, and then the debate will come to a close. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank members for speaking on this motion. I wanted to wait until the report. I wish to provide my views before the release of the report. So continuously reviewing the targeted poverty alleviation strategy is my motion. If the work of the government is good, they should continue. Otherwise, we should work on the same page and rally together in order to make further enhancements. It's all that simple. After the release of the report on impact of targeted poverty alleviation strategy in Hong Kong, there's been much discussion in society. Do we need to measure poverty? Do we need a definition? In addition to the 3 target groups, do we need further target groups? Can big data identify all people who need help? I believe the government has already heeded views of society. The poverty line needs to come with standards to identify target groups. We need to quantify and gauge the effectiveness of the policies. There could be dynamic adjustments. The discussions over the past 2 days should pave the way for the future development of the targeted poverty alleviation strategies. I hope that people's lives will be improved. I shall submit. I hope members will support my motion. And I'll put the question to you that the motion would find Mr. Lam Chun-sing as amended by Mr. Elaine CHIK, Mr. Chan Cho-kwong, Mr. Lee Chun-keung, Mr. Biu-tang be passed. Will members please proceed to vote? Members please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present, that is, those returned by the election committee and those returned by the functional and geographical constituencies. I declare the motion as amended passed. I now adjourn the Council until 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 8th of July, 2026.